Hello and welcome to PopFlash. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by the divine Miss Harvey from Team CLG Red, and this is everything you need to know about Counter-Strike this week. Our first story this week is the WinOut CSGO Championships, which took place over the weekend in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There were $20,000 on the line and 16 teams in attendance. So let's kick things off, Steph, by taking a look at Groups A and B.
Yeah, as you can see, there's no big surprise in Group A and B. CLG finished on top with 2-0. They didn't lose any maps until playing LG, so it's really straightforward for them during this tournament. And the same thing for 3S Up. Yeah, so those are the two groups, and obviously I played in one of these groups.
Well,
yeah.
Let me ask you about that very quickly. So,
yeah.
Obviously you're a little bit biased because you do play for CLG, but this was really a story of two CLGs, these two groups. So over in Group A, the men's team did finish top, as you said, and over in Group B, the women's CLG team, CLG Red, finished in unfortunately last place. So, Steph, you played in the tournament, you were on the team.
Yes.
What went wrong for you guys in CLG Red?
We actually didn't do that bad, I would say. We lost our matches 16-9 and then 16-13. The 16-9 match, we won 3 versus 3 ups the first half, 9-6 on Dust 2, and we couldn't get a single round on T side. So I think our T side Dust 2 has a lot of work to be done. The girls practiced it a lot without me, and I was not up to pair. I was making like really crucial mistakes.
Absolutely. Well, I guess commiserations are in order. You had some very close games, but yeah, dropped out dead last. We'll say no more about that. Let's move on and take a look at Groups C and D in that case. And the story over here, well, first of all, over in Group C, that Method won that group, 2 wins, 0 losses. But over in Group D, Luminosity also won that group, as you might expect. You know, a lot of people kind of saw CLG and Luminosity, CLG men and Luminosity as the big favourites coming into this tournament. Is that fair to say? Were there any other challenges here, or was it really about those two who would be in the final?
I think it's really about those two. These two teams are getting a lot of international experience, and they're getting more and more confident, and they're making less and less mistakes. You're watching CLG right now. This is not the CLG that I've seen like over 6 months ago. They're definitely stronger. They're definitely more working more together. The last major was like their preparation for the last major prior to the qualification, and then the major was really, really intense, and it shows in their game. And they changed strat caller too. Cutler is now calling, and since they've changed, I think everybody is doing a better job. I think even FNS is doing a better job at his role. So everybody is just being lifted up by the momentum and the morale. They usually have a lot of issues closing, even versus lower tier teams, and this weekend it was not the case at all.
Okay, well, we'll come back and talk about the CLG men in just a second, but before we do, let's go and have a look at the upper bracket. So we've seen the group stage, we've seen the 8 teams that qualified for the upper bracket here, and as we can see here on screen, Counterlogic Gaming and Luminosity pretty much swept right through this bracket. Every single match they played was 2-0 up to the final. Ignoring those two teams for the moment, there are a lot of other kind of unknown North American teams, and even another Brazilian team thrown in here. Games Academy came up for the event. Outside of CLG and Luminosity, which other teams impressed you at this event?
I would say 3UPs impressed me the most. You know, they're a very, very new team, a lot of young players. The average on that team is probably like 20, 21, 22 at max. So we didn't really know what to expect. I know sometimes they can do great online, but it's really inconsistent. And Davey was a monster this weekend. As you can see in the stats, he finished like top 5 in most of the stats, even though he wasn't in the part of the final. He played amazing. And he had huge numbers. We're talking about he dropped 30s versus really good teams. So he was really they impressed me because I thought Method was going to be a stronger team. For example, they've done more events. They've been together for a longer time. I followed them throughout the last year, and I really thought Method, it was going to be a good time for them to break through. And then 3UPS got me by surprise by just swooping 2-0 Method. And I know Method did a lot of mistakes, but I mean, props to 3UPS. All these 5 players were really motivated. They were really positive during these tournaments, even when they were down. They were like, okay, when they were down versus us, I could feel the tension. I could feel some of them were somewhat, well, a little bit on tilt, but they were able to come back, and they did that versus other teams as well. I thought they did great.
Okay, well as 3UPS did play throughout the tournament, they were ultimately eliminated in the semi-finals by Luminosity Gaming and then Games Academy in the lower bracket. Ultimately, in the end, though, it was CLG versus Luminosity in the grand final, a match that CLG took home at 2-1. And I think it's fair to say that CLG didn't really look troubled too much in that final. Tarek went absolutely insane. He dropped a 1.4 rating, according to HLTV. I fully expect you to give me a biased answer here based on the fact that you work for or play for CLG. But are CLG, the male team, making a strong case to be the second best team in America right now?
They are, and I think they were, but Liquid Vehico is really unknown for me at the moment. I have no idea if they're going to be better than they were or if they're going to stay the same or worse. I think chemistry is incredibly important, and I think their team chemistry, even though they couldn't beat CLG by the end of the last major qualification, they were on a good track regarding that chemistry. Now they're making that change with Hiko, and to be honest, only the qualifier is already in 2 weeks for the next major. So it's going to come real fast. They're going to have to be really, real fast. And, you already saw amazing clips from Spencer from Hiko since he's back with that team, with Liquid. So I think they could be a contender versus CLG in the end. But right now, or maybe right now they already have their honeymoon phase, and that phase usually can last a few weeks.
Yeah.
But overall, I think CLG is flying to the moon, trying to reach C9. But it doesn't mean that Liquid won't, try to follow in their footsteps as fast as possible.
For our second topic this week, we're going to preview the upcoming ESL and ESEA Dubai Invitational, which is taking place this coming weekend in the United Arab Emirates. So this is a pretty big tournament, Steph. There are $250,000 on the line. It's akin to a Valve-sponsored major tournament almost. And as we have a look at the groups of invited teams, we can see it's a pretty stacked tournament already, right? We've got the likes of Cloud9, NiP, Envy, Virtus Pro in Group A, and over in Group B, TSM, Fnatic, Na'Vi, and Titan. So let's start with Group A. Enviers obviously are fresh off their appearance in the finals of ESL Cologne. Virtus Pro similarly finished in the semi-finals of that major, so both of those teams are looking pretty strong at the moment. Is it fair to say that they're probably the 2 favorite teams to make it out of this group?
I would say so. But I also want to say that Cloud9 is usually always bringing us surprises at these international events. But Envy is just, it's just like I said, on the honeymoon. They're just all over, of happiness, and they just want to get out of their group, and they're just frag hunting, and they're just like all over the place. It's amazing to watch them play because for me, it's refreshing. It's it's not the whole Counter-Strike. It's again kind of evolving. And my prediction would be VPC9.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I would go with VPC9 just because. Let's go, VPC9.
We'll come back. As you mentioned, Gaming Paradise was anything but a paradise, so Virtus Pro potentially a bit shaken. But it's interesting you talk about Cloud9 there because Virtus Pro have been kind of like Cloud9's kryptonite for the last, ever since Cloud9 added Skadoodle and Freakazoid. I think they're 1 for 8 versus Virtus Pro.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's not good. Realistically, what needs to happen for Cloud9 to get out of this group?
I think it's a lot of individual performance versus VP. I think versus NIP and versus NVS, it's going to be just Cloud9 being Cloud9. But for VP, we're going to need a lot of individual performance because we're going to need Skadoodle to be on fire. And most of the time he is, but if he... Like maybe he isn't like 1 match out of 8, and it can't be that 1 match out of 8 because they're gonna lose. Like we need Skrull to be on fire, and we need either Shroud or Freakazoid or Nothing to go nuts as well. And you know, Nothing can do it. He's done it, but I think he's doing it like once out of 3 matches. So like if all stars align and 2 other star players are actually on fire and they don't let VP explode, because VP is the kind of team that builds up on them. They have the best momentum in the game, I think. When they start winning, they're unstoppable. They just like they build up this momentum and they just think they're the best, and they start taking more risks, and that's when their star players shine. So for me, Cloud9 needs to stop VP right away, and that's how they could win.
Stop the Virtus plow, as it were.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Cloud9, their players being a little bit inconsistent there, because speaking of inconsistency, let's move over to Group B now. And I mean, Fnatic in this group is pretty much a lock, right? They're virtually guaranteed to go through.
Yeah.
But TSM is where the inconsistency comes in. It's interesting, is it? Because the other teams in this group aren't particularly stable either. They're a little bit shaky as well. I mean, Na'Vi, they've been up and down recently. They went 0 for 2 versus Envy and Cologne. They went 1 for 2 versus Kingwin this week at Gaming Paradise. Again, far from a paradise. And Titan, the Titan have got this new roster, and they have just been kind of dismal for the last few weeks since they picked up that lineup. Between Na'Vi and Titan, then these two similarly shaky teams, which of those two are more likely to qualify from this group?
I think Na'Vi will qualify more over Titan. I actually was surprised Titan was invited to Dubai Invitational, because not because they didn't deserve the spot. It's just because they really are the weaker team for me out of these 8 at the moment. I'm not saying that they're not going to be able to come back, because the players on Titan are amazing. I think Existence is a smart guy, and he's going to figure out what's wrong and fix it. And like we saw versus VP this weekend, maybe it's already in progress and already being fixed. Yeah. But regarding Na'Vi, I think they're more stable, even though they lost a lot. I think they're more stable, and the chances that they win the matches are more possible. But on the Titan side, what I think is that the players can explode more than a Na'Vi side. So if it's a good weekend and if the players are feeling it in Dubai, who knows what can happen? Because I think, like I said, these players on Titan can explode like this. A good match for Shocks or for these guys can one player could carry them to victory if they decide to be like on fire. It's just we haven't seen that since the new Titan. So hopefully they're going to be able to do that.
Last but not least, this week I've got some quick fire questions for you, Steph. So quick as you can, give me your thoughts on the following news stories from the week. First of all, Copenhagen Wolves and Hellraisers won the first European pre-qualifier for DreamHack Cluj-Napoca.
I'm really happy actually that Hellraiser won. If I'm not mistaken, they didn't qualify at all for the last majors, so it's fun to see them try to qualify again. And as for the CPH Wolves, also, it's been a while that we've seen them in the major. I think they were there for the first ones or something, and that was it. So hopefully it's fun to see more diversity. And I really like the format where all international teams compete for the major spots instead of having it per region. So I like that Valve is doing that again. It was fun to have NA secured spots, but it could be also fun to see 4 NA teams make it to the major if everybody's on fire. So I think the international qualifier in Sweden is a good choice.
That's it for this week. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by Miss Harvey.
And we'll be back next Wednesday for another episode of PopFlash.